Australia is different and it does have a way of changing you in big ways and in so many small ways, but they're all in a very good way. Sometimes you move to another country, live there for years, and you just slowly start doing things that you never did before. And then you come back home and suddenly realize that, oh, in a way, I became more Australian than I maybe thought. Because after living in Australia for 7 years, I definitely picked up some habits that I didn't have before, or the things that I didn't even think before or do before. And I realized that I really, really liked those changes. So these are some of the Australian habits and things I've started doing over the years after living there. I became very serious about the sun. I never used to think about the sun that much. When I was younger, summer meant one thing: get outside, go to the beach, get as much sun as you possibly can, and enjoy the full summer. Because summers in Estonia are just too short not to do that, not to enjoy it to the fullest. And I actually used to love going to the beach, sunbathing, and I couldn't wait for summer because I wanted to spend the whole day in the sun. Then I moved to Australia, and Australia very quickly taught me that sun is not something you should mess around with. Now I use sunscreen all the time, even when it's cloudy, even when it's not too hot, even now that I'm back in Estonia, where the UV levels are generally much lower than what I was used to in Australia. But I still automatically think about sunscreen every day. I even check the UV index before I go outside, or even before I go to the beach or go for a walk. I'll put sunscreen on, and sunscreen less than 50 SPF doesn't really exist for me anymore. And if I'm going to the beach, I'm already thinking about shade, sunscreen, and that I don't really want to be there for that long, which is very different from the person I was before Australia. I still love the beach, I still love the sun, I still love the summer, but I don't really go to the beach to just lie in the sun and sunbathe for hours on end. I'm definitely much more careful about it. I want to swim, I want to listen to the waves when I go to the beach. I want to sit there with coffee and a book. I want to walk along the beach, but I'm very serious about my sunscreen and my skin now, and protecting myself from the sun. I had quite the collection of sunscreens at home in Australia. I never left the home without sunscreen, even in the early mornings, because Australian sun is no joke. I stopped caring so much about what I'm wearing. This one, it might sound weird to some people, but I feel like Australia, compared with Europe, European style can often feel a little bit more polished, more like dress to impress kind of style. Obviously, this depends completely on the country and the city and the person, but still, in Australia, I feel like people dress much more casually in everyday life. You can go for coffee in leggings and sneakers and nobody stares at you or think that's weird. You can go to the supermarket in your gym clothes. You can walk around in shorts, a t-shirt and Birkenstocks and nobody really cares. Nobody looks weird at you of what you're wearing. Fashion is more about being comfortable, not showing off who wears what. What brand are you wearing? What expensive things are you wearing? It's nobody cares at all. And I slowly started to do the same. Not that I cared so much before, but I was definitely more conscious about what I was wearing, or I was trying to dress more to impress, I guess. I don't know how to even explain that, but Australian style is just much more casual. Before Australia, I definitely thought more about how I looked when I left the house, that I have to dress up in a certain way if I go shopping or if I go to the city or something. What am I wearing? Do I look put together? What are other people going to think what I'm wearing, and so much more. But after living in Australia for years, I started thinking much more about whether I was comfortable and whether I actually liked what I was wearing. That I didn't care what other people thought of what I was wearing, but I would just wore what I wanted to. Not whether I looked impressive or good enough for a certain place. Just If I liked wearing gym clothes and casual clothing, I would do that. If I want to go to shopping with my gym clothing on or comfortable wear, I would do that. And I think that is definitely something I brought back with me from Australia. I care a lot less about that. And not in a way that I just wear random things all the time, but I don't wear to impress. I wear what feels good. And I also definitely started wearing much less makeup. And I actually think that's one of the nicest things about living somewhere with a much more casual everyday culture. You realize that most people really aren't paying that much attention. Everyone is just living their own life, doing their own thing, wearing whatever they want. And once you realize that, you become much more comfortable being yourself. I only want to wear comfortable shoes now. This might sound even stranger than my last point, and maybe I'm the only one, but that's what I noticed or felt different in everyday life in Australia. In my opinion, Australians have a different shoe style than Europeans. And I mean in everyday life, not in workplaces and so on, but Australians like to be comfortable and it doesn't have to be like a statement piece. I think Australians have perfected the combination of looking casual, looking good, but always also being comfortable. They wear sneakers, Birkenstocks, sandals. That was basically all I wore as well. And I had actually never heard about Birkenstocks before I moved to Australia. And they're a German brand. But I guess Estonia is not a summer country and we can't wear them that much. So it does make sense. We only get to wear sandals 3 months of the year. And that's maybe if we get lucky. But I think comfortable shoes make sense when you think about Australian life. You spend so much time walking around, going to the beach, going for walks, going outside, hiking, because Australia is an outdoor lifestyle. So you need comfortable shoes. I did own a pair or two like nicer shoes, of course, but I only wore those maybe once a year. Other than that, I only wore sneakers and Birkenstocks and some kind of sandals. And now that I'm back home, that's all I wear too. Comfort over anything else. Sneakers and Birkenstocks. And I wish I could wear Birkenstocks more often because they are very comfortable. But most days it's just sneakers. I stopped worrying so much. Australia changed my general attitude towards everyday life. I became less worried and stressed about small things or thinking about life all the time or about the future. If something didn't go according to plan, I don't automatically feel like the whole day is ruined, everything is ruined. If something goes wrong, I think, well, okay, we'll figure it out. And I think part of that came from living in a culture where everyday life often felt a little bit more relaxed. People were more relaxed. People don't rush through life so much, but take the time to enjoy it. Obviously, Australia has stressful life too, stressful jobs, traffic, and all the same problems that any other country has. And it's not like everyone walks around completely relaxed all day, but I don't know, the environment is just very different. And there is definitely much more relaxed lifestyle, attitude, and mindset. And I definitely adopted some of that more relaxed attitude and lifestyle, the no worries lifestyle. I stopped feeling like everything had to be perfect all the time, and I became much more comfortable just going with the flow and not taking things or life too seriously. So, those are some of the Australian habits that I've kind of adopted after 7 years of living in Australia. And I think the funny thing about living abroad is that you don't realize how much a country is changing you while you're actually living there. You start doing these things, you start thinking differently, you start picking up little habits day by day. And then you go back home and then you realize how much you've actually changed compared to who you used to were. I'm curious though, if you've lived abroad, what habit did you pick up and started doing, or how did it change you? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.